Hey guys, it's Kingdom Orange 2 here, and welcome back to my channel. A couple months ago, there was a lot of buzz on the internet about this new Monster High book called Once Bitten, Twice Dead, and I thought today I would tell you guys what exactly happens in this book and my overall thoughts and opinions about it. This video is going to answer a lot of people's questions like, does Laguna die in this novel? Well, you're just going to have to watch and see. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Summary. Just a warning, this section will contain spoilers. So the book opens with Dracula and Draculaura roaming around the hallways of Monster High at the beginning of summer. Dracula tells Draculaura that after he got a sunburn at the Steins' end of the year school party, he went to the pharmacy to get healing ointment. Unfortunately though, the ointment contains silver in it, something that is lethal to vampires, and he's pretty sure that he will die soon. But even sooner than he expects, Dracula literally passes away that exact night. Fast forward 3 months, and Draculaura is now living under the legal guardianship of her housekeeper, Miss Heaves. The new semester starts, and on the first day, Ramsay's Denial begins cleaning out Dracula's office at the school. It's important to mention here that Dracula was Monster High's long-standing head of the school board. And now that the position is open, Ramses wants Draculaura's endorsement for office, but she doesn't really want to give it to him yet. Draculaura is feeling a bit overwhelmed with being back at school and decides to take a walk through the human cemetery located beside her house. Now, quick thing I have to also know is that in this book, humans don't know monsters exist, and while there's no physical barriers that block the monster world from the human one, Monster High, however, was made to be invisible, so a human could walk right past it without never noticing it was there. Anyways, Draculaura ends up bumping into a boy named Poe. They exchange some pleasantries, but she ends up leaving him without giving Poe her number or even her real name. So when Draculaura gets back to school, she finds out that humans somehow got through the barrier and end up taking a video of the students and uploading it to the internet, and now everybody is like freaking out. And Monster High itself starts acting really weird, like lights start turning on and off around the school, and Operetta mentions that random tunnels are appearing all over the catacombs. So Ramses uses the chaos to try and justify his campaign for school board and cancels all after-school activities and clubs to try to keep everyone safer. However, this really upsets everyone, and Cleo tries to justify her father's actions, but this causes her and Deuce to get into a fight and eventually break up. A little bit later, Draculaura is walking to her locker and finds a random ancient book somebody placed there. The book basically tells her that if a vampire's creator dies, that they will turn back to their original state, and since Dracula was Draculaura's creator, that means that she would become a human again. This really freaks Draculaura out, and she starts searching for answers in the library, where she reads the phrase sanguis ritur, or blood is required in English. Now, Draculaura doesn't really know what to do with this information, so she heads back to the cemetery to collect her thoughts and ends up meeting Poe there again. She and Poe share a steamy makeout session, but Draculaura accidentally bites Poe's lip and he figures out that she's really a vampire. Despite this incident, however, Draculaura and Poe really like each other, and Draculaura breaks monster rules and sends Poe an eye coffin so they can continue to communicate. Over the months, their romance continues to grow, and Poe shows Draculaura more of the human world and vice versa. Draculaura also begins wondering if she would be okay with becoming a human, that way she wouldn't take simple things in life for granted, like sunsets. As all this is happening, Ghoulia continues to do research on Draculaura's situation and ends up telling her that in order to prevent Draculaura from becoming fully human, she must drink a human's blood. A couple days later, humans once again break through Monster High's barriers and Frankie suddenly goes missing. They find out through a live stream that Frankie has been kidnapped by the Van Helscream Society, a group of monster hunters that have been around for millennia, and Draculaura begins to plan a way to try and rescue her. She meets up with Poe in the cemetery, where she also learns that Poe's father is the one who's in charge of the Van Helscream Society. Draculaura comes to the realization that despite her recent existential crisis, she wants to remain a vampire, and Poe allows her to drink blood from his neck. She does, and suddenly gains the full extent of her vampire powers. Draculaura, along with her friends, use their powers to break into the Van Helscream Society headquarters. They rescue Frankie, steal back her journal, and wipe the Society's computer's hard drive. Draculaura also uses her vampire hypnosis on Poe's dad to make him abandon the Society's plans and be a better father to his son. Once the ghouls return from their mission, Ghoulia tells Draculaura that Dracula's blood protects the school, and that's why there was never any elections in the past. So in order to save Monster High, Draculaura sacrifices some of her own blood, and the school becomes stable once again. Draculaura becomes head of the school board, and the book ends with her realizing that she can't risk Monster High anymore and decides to no longer speak to Poe. My review. Okay, so before I get into my review, I thought I would answer the question you've been dying to know. Does Laguna get boiled alive in this book? Well, the answer is no. There is a part of the book where the water in the Monster High swimming pool gets so hot because of all the weird things that are happening that it burns her skin and she considers leaving the school entirely. However, it's such an insignificant plot point that I didn't even include it in the summary. Now, a lot of people on the internet were worried that this book was canon and it was going to ruin the Monster High Generation 1 universe. And while I do applaud the writer for clearly doing her research, this book couldn't possibly be canon because it ignores some important plot elements in both the movies and the cartoon. First of all, we all know that Draculaura got her vampire powers in Fright's camera action after restoring Elizabeth to the vampire throne, so her not having any powers in this novel wouldn't make any sense. There's also the fact that this book mentions the Van Helscream Society being around for millennia, but in the movie Fright On, everybody initially thought Van Helscream was a good guy, so that doesn't really add up. Now in this book, Toralei and Claudine are dating, and I honestly haven't even read that comic or any of the new comics Monster High has come out with, so I can't say if this is like a Ghoul Friends situation where a set of books somewhat falls in the same universe. Regardless though, for Generation 1 purists, somewhat like myself, you have nothing to worry about. But now let's talk about the good and the somewhat stinky parts of the book. For starters, I really enjoyed the novel's mature tone. You can definitely tell this was written for the older fans of Monster High who grew up with the show as kids. Honestly, it was a bit shocking to hear slow-mo referenced as Ghoulia's hookup, or the scene in which Draculaura thinks Poe is trying to squeeze her butt. The one issue though is that at times the dialogue was a bit too childish, and I'm not talking about the way in which the characters speak, but in the scenes between Poe and Draculaura. I'll even go further and say that the scenes between Poe and Draculaura were probably the most boring parts of the book, and I usually found my eyes somewhat wandering around the page when I read them. One thing I will really commend the author on though is how she wrote about Draculaura and her existential crisis. The implications of immortality is something that Monster High never touched on, and I understand why they couldn't because it's marketed towards kids, so I'm happy that this author really went there. The problem is though, I just wish she went a bit further. Draculaura debates wanting to become human because her mother decided to die instead of becoming a vampire, and she wonders if knowing that she had less time on Earth would make her appreciate it more. But that's where it kind of stops, and I felt like for a teen novel, it could have gone a bit deeper. Why not elaborate on Draculaura's backstory, or why she doesn't drink blood in the first place, or maybe the fact that Draculaura is tired of falling in love because she feels like they'll just die on her. I don't know, just something a bit deeper than sunsets. Also, if you couldn't tell by the summary section of this video, it's clearly just a morbid retelling of Ghoul's Rule, which further proves my point as to why this book isn't canon. I actually like how the novel goes a bit deeper into the human-monster relation, but I don't really care how the ending is kind of open, whereas the conflict in the movie is solved. Even if Draculaura was able to disband the Van Helscream Society, that video still exists of the monsters on the internet, and this problem isn't really going to go poof. And the book acknowledges this, but then it just says Draculaura will deal with it later. The last thing I thought was really strange about the novel was the lack of Claude in it. You'd think after something as traumatizing as Dracula's death, he would be the first person Draculaura would lean on, but he's not in it at all. The author doesn't even mention Claude and Draculaura breaking up or Claude in the novel, and I just found that to be really weird, especially since we know how head over heels Draculaura was for Claude in the webisodes. Overall, I think I would give the book 3 out of 5 stars. I don't like reading books at all actually, and I hate paying like $20 for them, but if you're really into novels, it would be something I would consider checking out. I don't know, reading is good for your brain, and I think this book might have given me like 1 IQ point. If you liked this video today and want to see more content in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you soon. Bye!